Hey guys, welcome back to the NFL Players Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Miller. So this week, I'm super excited. We have an active NFL player, Brandon Copeland, on the podcast, and he is, a pioneer really in making himself more than just an athlete. He's doing so many things off the field. Obviously, we'll link to all his off the field endeavors in the show notes, but BrandonCopeland.com is his website. He's a linebacker, special teams player for the Falcons, been on quite a few different teams, had to really earn it in the NFL. And I always have great respect for those guys that earn their stripes the hard way. They don't, get drafted highly or drafted at all and have to go out there and earn it without any help from the front office. So huge credit to him. And then he teaches, in addition to all that, he teaches Life 101 with Penn University. And, I don't know how he has all the time to do all this and manage all this and still be such a good football player, but he does. So Brandon, thanks for coming on. And I just, anything I missed, you fire it off now, because I know there's so much more to you than just what I said.
No, man, I'm just, I'm excited to be here. Clearly, I've followed your career, been a fan of the way you play the game and the way you played the game and also the person you are off the field. So super excited to be here and to just chop it up with you. So let's dive in, man.
All right, first I got to ask, because I just as a fan now watching the game and seeing a COVID season where there's no fans, how was that playing with really very few or no fans?
Yeah, it was. I would say it was I'd say there were awkward times, like awkward moments. So like after the national anthem, right? Like where typically you just get the crowd roaring and things like that, and it's just literally, they finish the national anthem and then all right, let's play ball. It's just like completely quiet, like pin drop. Those were like some of those times where it was like, dang, this is kind of awkward. Are we really about to play a game today, right? But as you know, once you step on those in between those lines and you buckle that chin strap and you hit somebody's trying to hit you, it's like, okay, it doesn't really matter who's in the in the stadium at this point. So it was definitely cool. I would say it was definitely cool when you went to. I was in New England last year. We did not have fans the entire season, so it was definitely like a cool appreciation type of thing when you went to stadiums like the Kansas Cities who had fans, right? It was like, damn, like even if it's half full or a quarter full, it just feels good hearing a cheer or a boo. All right.
I'm sure it was weird. Probably felt like a scrimmage to start. And then eventually when everyone started getting serious of it, it was pretty awesome. But I know I just want to know more about Life 101, how I know you're kind of expanding who everyone you're trying to reach with that. And I mean, that's personal for me because, I didn't grow up with pretty much any financial literacy. My parents have, I'm their retirement. They don't have retirement accounts. So like they, carry credit card debt, like all the mistakes you can make in personal finance were ones I made early on. And, really educating myself towards the end of my career and then post-career, has been so great for me. So can you just talk a little bit about Life 101 and all the things that go into that and how successful it's been? It looks like it from the outside looking in looks amazingly successful.
Thank you, man. Yeah, so you would really appreciate this story. So I'm in Detroit playing with the Lions, and myself and two other teammates were riding around with the head of not the head of development, but he was basically the head of demo for the city. And Detroit, that's where I got my own personal real estate, my own start in real estate. And I was just looking like, okay, hey, this person's had a demo. They know what building's about to be knocked down next. Where's going to be the next revitalization, so to speak? And long story short, during that drive, one of the players who was a Notre Dame grad said, hey, man, I just wish when I was in college we had this class that like taught us about some of the stuff we would face. Like, I just feel like they should just make all athletes, go through a class that talks about budgeting and how to buy a house and your credit and things like that. Like, because I've made so many mistakes. and we should just do that for all athletes. And I was literally sitting in the front seat, like, I mean, that's just not just an athlete thing. Like, we all need that. And, right then and there, it was like, okay, let's take this simple premise, this simple idea, and let's actually run with it. Let's actually create something and make people understand that how valuable this stuff is. And when you think about our school systems growing up, right, like it really, it, I was surprised how hard I had to sell the concept of like, let's talk about buying a house before we buy one, right? Like, let's talk about our credit before we're actually getting credit cards and all these things. Let's talk about how we actually pay down debt. And I was surprised at how hard I had to sell that to different people and institutions. And ultimately, I'm fortunate that my alma mater was like, hey, yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen. And so, we've been teaching the course for 3 years now. I just do it in the off season. It was pretty cool. We had one of the students from our first semester, our first class doing it, reach out via email saying 2 years later, and 2 years and $80,000 in student loans later, I'm debt free, right? Like, for me, that's the coolest thing in the world. And now this young lady is going to go and take that same energy that she paid down her debt with by having our class. She knows, let me take that energy and apply it to investing in an older version of myself, or retirement, or whatever it may be. And I think that's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I've said this a long time, is especially, and you're thinking about athletes in your junior year, whatever your last year of college is, they should make you take a personal finance class that kind of matters to you, and even more so the guys that have a chance to go pro, because there's a quote, I'm taken from someone else, but it's, you really can't afford to learn at the pace of your own experience as an NFL player, because you get your money too early, and you don't want to make those mistakes so early on, and so you have to learn at a faster pace. And so anything that it can accelerate that, whether that's the right people around you that can help you make decisions and educate you along the way, getting better education earlier on, especially as it starts to matter more, and you get, you're approaching possibly getting drafted, or making it to the NFL, I think would be huge for the NCAA and colleges around the country to really embrace. And I know some do, some don't though. So definitely love that what you're doing there.
Thank you, man. I think it is, like you said, it's some do, some don't. One of the biggest things when I pitched it to Penn, it was like, name me one course here on campus that literally every single one of your students will use. Like, it's guaranteed. If I'm an engineering student, I might not use anything in my art class or something, right? I don't need the tangent of a 45-degree angle right now. I'm just saying it, right? Like, and ultimately, if somebody asks me that, I'm gonna Google it, or break out that TI-84 or something, But but we all are going to have to use this stuff. So why are we even debating it?
I know. I mean, every single person pays taxes. Every single person has to deal with, FICA coming out of their paycheck. So it's like, why wouldn't you educate, what these things are? Even at a basic level, what investing is, what diversification is, just, simple things. To really educate, instead of like what I had was plant biology, and I had a fine art pre-Renaissance or something, and I don't think I could identify any of the paintings I had to memorize.
Right, right. And I think just another thing on that subject is like, one of the things the reason why I took the time, or I take the time to go back and actually teach it, is because I think it's like, it's also, I mean, we've all sat in those classrooms where you've had that professor or that teacher, and you just kind of felt a little nervous to have the dumb question. We've sat in the NFL classroom, and you don't want to be the guy asking the stupid question, right? Or not knowing the play. And for this specific topic, money especially, like, we all have to realize, like, there are no stupid questions. Like, we haven't been taught this stuff, right? Like, if I come to you and no one's ever taught me that 2 times 2 equals 4, if I come to you and say, hey, 2 times 2 equals 3, you shouldn't look at me like a dummy, because no one's ever talked to me about budgeting. No one's ever talked to me about investing, right? Like we are all starting at the ground level, and a lot of institutions, not even institutions, a lot of people think you'll just get it over time or your parents will pass it down to you, but that's not necessarily the case. We have some students who are pretty well off, and they talk about how their parents don't want to talk with them about money and stuff like that. It's an awkward conversation. So part of the sauce and the recipe of Life 101 is just making this a fun conversation that everyone can join in on. And me being the leader of it, just saying, hey, I come in the first day. I am not an expert. I am learning stuff all the time. I know a little bit about a lot, but ultimately, I don't have the time to be great at. There's a reason why you hire a financial advisor for your to manage your money. There's an accountant to do your taxes, a realtor to help you buy and sell a home, right? Like, I don't have the time to be great at all these things, but I'm gonna open up my network. We're gonna get these subject matter experts in, and we're gonna all join in on this conversation. And I'm gonna be asking them questions as well. Let's learn these things together, and that's where money and not just, I don't even want to call it wealth, because I think some people are like always chasing wealth. Financial freedom, that is where financial freedom is created. I'm not necessarily chasing wealth or this certain number. I am chasing the freedom to create the life I want and to live on my own terms.
Financial freedom, financial independence, the ability to have flexibility to use your money for the things you care about, whether that's the people you care about, the causes you care about. I mean, that's ultimately the goal here. I mean, you can say it's wealth with impact. You can call it whatever you want, but it's attainable for most all NFL players. And so from I know one thing that I noticed, even just, I mean, I'll use myself as an example, is the amount of pride and kind of confidence you have as a player, and what it takes to get to the NFL. That that helps you on the field, but that can hurt you off the field, because if you don't want to admit that you don't know something, you stay quiet, you don't ask questions. Even going back to finish my degree at ASU, it takes, you have to swallow your pride and go back and sit with the, 20-year-old and 21-year-olds to go finish that degree. So it took, you got to just, if you want it, if you want the outcome you're looking for, you have to do whatever it takes. And, I think, I think, I think it's trending in the right direction, but I certainly think it can accelerate even faster, where the education and the better advice for players is speeding up, but it still needs to be keep being pushed, because I just know I was an NFLPA player rep in for 7 of my 8 years, and as much as they try to help, it's going to happen organically from active players, former players, the right guys, the right role models, the aspect of financial freedom. I think any player can relate to.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I think it's something that we're all chasing. And I mean, you come into the NFL and you don't know, right? Like you just look, and on the outside in, it's like I made it. Like I've been working my whole life for this thing. I've made it, and now, like, no one tells you like the work has just begun. The coach might tell you that on your first day, but like once you get that call, you get that that feeling, that contract, that first contract, you just like, well, nobody's ever told me how I'm supposed to operate from now on, right? Like all the movies say it's supposed to be good from here on out. I'm supposed to get the big contract, and I'm the guy, right? And I think that you know we all have those dreams of financial freedom. We might not necessarily call it financial freedom. We all have those dreams and aspirations of being able to take care of the people around us. I think that that's another thing that we kind of get a bad NFL players get a bad rep and a bad stigma of, like, oh, you got your what do people call your not your posse, but your entourage. Yeah, you got your entourage with you and all that stuff. Well, that's just that's the philanthropic side of me. I want to help the people who've helped me get there, but we also have to, as soon as we step in that door, and this is for all of us making money, right? Like as soon as you start earning the income, you also have to flip that switch of that Jay-Z. I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man. So like you can't allow the entourage to ruin the business of Zach Miller LLC or Brandon Copeland LLC, right? Like You want your brand to be a Coca-Cola, a Starbucks, something that's going to last forever. And if you come out in the first year just paying for everything and your cash flows are more outflow than inflow, then clearly, we know how that story ends. So, it's just hopefully people keep tuning into this, keep tuning into the spaces that you're creating and other people are creating, and they come in a little better off than we were.
I will say to that, I mean, and being on so many teams now, you can tell the guys that get it and the ones that don't. If you surround yourself with too many takers, not enough givers, then you're not going to end up building wealth. You're not going to even getting to invest, because if you don't have any savings at the end of the day, you're not investing. And if you're not investing, you're wasting an opportunity. And so, um, yeah, with that, I mean, as the draft is coming up here, and I know we're going to have, a whole slew of rookies that'll be entering their first year. One question I had was, what is the biggest personal football, anywhere in that area, advice you would give to a young guy coming in?
First and foremost, take care of your knees, man. I'm just thinking about it. If my knees felt like they did rookie year, like I never thought that. I was always like, man, I don't need to stretch. I feel good. Now I'm like, whoa, we need a 15-minute stretch. Um, Biggest piece of advice I would say is come into the league and hoard your money. Don't go and start making big purchases. And the reason why I say that is you need to first and foremost understand money and understand how to make it your employee. And you don't necessarily have the time to do that once you get drafted and you got to report to rookie mini camps and all of those types of things, right? Um, I also think it's pretty not odd, but one of the other reasons why I say save and hoard your money is so that you can spend some time the year getting to know the team around you. So a lot of us, we come into the league and we just hired an agent who is probably introducing us to their financial advisor friend. And, we just have worked hard our entire lives, and then we just turn our money over to people we just met 3 months ago. You know what I'm saying? Your entire life's work. Just go ahead, let me give it to you. And good luck. I hope you really, really treat my money well. And there are some really, really good people out there who will, but I just think put them through the ringer. Like, make them put in work for your business, right? Make them teach you and educate you a bit more before you just hand over a check to them. And so that's one of the biggest things that I would say is like save as much as you can your first year so that you can understand the people around you, understand money. And then when you come out of year one, now it's ready to sit down at that big boardroom table and start to just kind of put a plan in place or create a plan with those people who stuck with you that year.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that is you had that Google form in the locker room, and that was the one I put for the number one for financial advice for any young guy was, find the right team to help that can give you the best financial advice you can get. When it comes to that, there's just too much to know. There's not one single piece of thing. Even if you say save a lot of money, you still have to invest that money the right way. And luckily, obviously savings rates what enabled me to be so successful, because I actually had like disjointed, had a broker at Merrill Lynch that, I just thought all financial advisors were the same. And so it's like, knowing everything I know now, I know how much, better is out there. And you think about these NFL team owners and they have family offices. They're not paying, whether it's Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, they're not paying those firms to pad their profits. They're capturing all that profits in the family office model. So there's just, and especially as you gain wealth in the NFL, you have more complexity. You want to make your life simple so you can focus on football. So I mean, just hiring the right people from the beginning and not being afraid to move on. I mean, I fired my agent as a player, and you you get so attached because you it's kind of your first hire. And if you fire someone, you have to admit that you made a mistake. But you got to think of it like a business, and it's just a business decision. And you have to let employees go as a business, and you're Brandon Copeland LLC. Like, you need to let go of someone that's not doing the required amount of work, the same amount of work you do on the field, they should be doing for you with your money. And so, I know a lot of athletes get hung up on that. And, my only advice is like just rip that band-aid off if you think that you're getting inferior advice, no matter if that's agents, financial advisors, anyone, business managers. Don't be afraid to move on, because they'll think about it for about a day and then they're moving on too.
Exactly. Yeah. I was gonna say, adding on to that is like, make people work for your money. Like, I know that might sound weird to some who may not understand what I mean yet, but like I one time I was getting recruited to this school in high school to go to college, and I remember talking to the person and telling them like, "Nah, I'm not. I'm gonna go to this other school," and the person literally like just cussed at me on the phone. What the fuck are you doing? All of this stuff. Yeah. And I was just like, wow, you just showed your true colors. Cool. Right. Like, glad I didn't make that decision, period. You know what I'm saying? And I think what I've done a decent job of is the people who are on my team have had to put in work to be there, and have had me. I've turned down their business in the past, but they still wanted to just provide value to me. And even if they thought that, hey, I can really do something great for you, and weren't just got to the point where they just became friends and weren't just selling their business, but ultimately over time it was like, hey, we'll do business together, but I know that you're invested in me because you've worked for my business. It wasn't just you showed up to my agent's party and you're cool with my agent. You might be getting a kickback. My agent might be getting a kickback. You gave me a card and all that stuff, and now you just got grandfathered in to my business. No, you have to work and earn my business the same way we got to earn it on the field.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, it's surprising that anyone who's in the NFL just really they've earned that money, because it's the dedication it takes to last in the NFL. It's a true dedication to your craft, all those hours of training. Everyone only sees the games. But I mean, that's what you should expect off the field. And then, you want someone that continuously is getting better and not just, staying stagnant. So it's kind of that growth mindset, lifelong learner. I can just tell that about you already, but it's so important to never be complacent, never rest on your laurels. Just keep grinding, because sometimes it can be easy to create wealth, but maintaining it and growing it, that can be some of the hardest part. I mean, obviously with me, I'm removed from the game now. I guess what's the biggest thing you see in, kind of traps or errors that NFL guys are making these days? I mean, I'm sure it hasn't changed much. My last year was 14, so I'm not that old.
Yeah, no, I mean it's literally the same thing. I think same thing that you saw. It I think right now, I mean, clearly 2014 social media was still a big thing then, but now it's just even more like prevalent. And so I think that we have to remove that competitive spirit when it comes to that off the field life. And what I mean when I say that is like, you'll easily see one of your teammates or friends posting themselves on some crazy vacation or them flying on a private jet, and it'll immediately you'll kind of feel a little less adequate because you're like, well, I mean, I should be able to afford to fly a private jet. I'm in the NFL too, not knowing what that person's financial situation is like, and ultimately, really, the biggest thing is not knowing the stats. I mean, again, there's a lot of BS stats out there about us going broke and all of those types of things, or a certain percentage of us going broke within 2 to 3 years of retirement, which some of these things have been disproven. But ultimately, the shoe fits somewhat, right? And so the biggest thing that I'm trying to make sure people understand is if I look around the locker room and say, we're in the spring 90-man roster, the NFL, these stats say that only 10 of us, 20 of us will actually be in the place we want to be or should be financially, and maybe 5 of us actually make it to that financial freedom realm. Well, that right there tells me I can't operate like everybody else in this locker room. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's one of the things that I always try to tell myself is like, I can't do what everyone else is doing and expect different results. Now, if all of us were just financially free when we were done retirement, right? Like when we were done football, then yeah, let's all do the same things. But we know we all won't be. So clearly, we need to operate differently if we're expecting different results for ourselves. And so that's something that I would say is like stay away from social media, but mentally put those blocks on yourself of like, okay, that's pretty cool what I see there, but that's not me. That's not what I'm trying to do. That's not my goal for myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. It's kind of knowing, you know, there's certain guys in the locker room, that, they're the highest paid at their position, and, they can afford to pay a lot of money for cars, homes, that type of thing. But not everyone's in the same situation. That's a common misconception that everyone in the NFL just makes a ton of money. The media definitely doesn't help that one out. But it reminds me
And I
of,
think it's also like
yeah,
on top of that, sorry
go ahead.
to jump in, but like we all know that like I try to find things that like we all have done before, but like you said, you were at ASU, right? Like you knew every tight end wasn't making it to the NFL, but you didn't work. You had to outwork them, right? Like you clearly had to outwork them and the tight ends around the league, not the NFL, but college football at that time to make it to the NFL and to last 8 years in the league. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so we know what it takes. Like, okay, clearly, if I'm trying to go to the NFL in college, I can't do the same thing that everybody else is doing. I need to run more. I need to sacrifice a little bit of stuff, right? But when we get to this money thing, again, as you pointed out earlier, our ego kind of kicks in a bit, and now it's like, well, he's doing this for his mom. Like, I want to pay off my mom's house too, and you should when you're ready, when it's not going to sink your whole boat, so to speak, not just on your first contract and your thing really isn't guaranteed. And the final thing I'll say, sorry for rambling, but I just released a video I'm a contributing editor at Kiplinger, and I released a video on advice to overnight millionaires coming into the league. Kiplinger.com/cope if anybody wants to check it out. But one of the first things I say is like, technically, when I came out of Penn and went to the NFL, I was signed to a 3-year, $1.45 million contract, and it sounded really, really good. I saw 26,000 of those dollars before being fired. And as you know, they don't have to honor any of that stuff, right? Like, and so don't believe the hype. Don't believe the contract number because it's not promised.
Yeah, yeah, they can void a contract very easily. As soon as you're not worth whatever you're going to make that year, they'll just cut you, no matter what. So it's brutal, but while you can capitalize on it and to make the most out of it, I mean, you definitely can set yourself up. I mean, you deserve to. You're going to take hits. You're going to be in what's essentially a car crash every weekend. So you gotta. I mean, I know I've had three surgeries on my ankle, one on my knee since I've been done. It adds up. I need to get the other one scoped probably. Both my shoulders have torn labrums, but I'm not doing that surgery. I've already done that one in college. So, you got to, especially the longer you play, the more it adds up. So you owe it to your future self to really to make those dollars count early. And when you're talking about wealth, it reminded me of Morgan Housel's book, Psychology of Money. He talks about what wealth is, what you don't see. And so it's like you can't show someone your invested asset, your portfolio. You're not going to walk around showing everyone your portfolio, but that's where you build the wealth. And so leading into that, I know you're a big investor. You invest in all types of things. So just either give me your philosophy or just what your investment strategy is.
Yeah, so coming into the league 9 years ago, 2013, it was or 8 years ago. It was less. I was more of a gambler, right? Like I was more of a not like going to Vegas and gambling, but more of like high risk, high reward. Let's go get it. Options. I was literally day trading options while in you know in between meetings during the season and stuff like that. I was a practice squad player. Clearly, probably why, because I was more focused on. I literally be in meetings and we'd be playing you guys. Actually, I've literally always talked this story. I was in Tennessee 2013, and they talking about tackling beast mode and all this stuff, and I would literally put on a call option for some Nike, and I'd literally be sitting in the meeting room, and I just look around, and I'm like, man, is this dude wearing Under Armour? Yeah, that's no big deal. Adidas, oh, coach, I got to go to the bathroom. And I literally go to the locker room and like try to sell out and all that stuff, right? And so having that type of experience, I've learned that, hey, there's a difference between that earned income and that portfolio slash potentially passive income, right? And to give yourself the opportunity to focus on that earned income, you have to invest. Personally, now I invest in things that I believe will be here for ever, or for the very, very long foreseeable future. Warren Buffett refers to razor blade stocks. He's like, it's not that you need to necessarily invest in a particular razor blade, but ultimately people are going to have to shave, whether it is 1901, 2001, 2021, whenever it is, right? So like, what company is the leader within that industry? And I think that those are the things I'm trying to think about. So like, even right now, not giving any names or anything like that, disclaimers, I'm not a financial advisor, but like, I'm every notification I'm seeing is about how this car company is working on an electric vehicle. This company is working on an electric vehicle. This company is working on the battery, right? Well, I don't need to pick the winner. I just need to pick the industry. Right? Like, let me get some exposure to the whole electric vehicle industry, the charging stations, the batteries. Like, how do I get exposure? Because clearly there is something coming from that, right? And so that's kind of how I invest now. I still like my risk. I'm a football player, right? Like, we got to shoot that gap every once in a while. So when I exactly, I still enjoy my risk. I'm in some cryptocurrency. I love what I'm seeing in that space. I do real estate. I got into real estate years ago because one day I did some options on Nike, actually, and the whole market went down 2% at the end of 2013 season. Literally remember this. I woke up on a Tuesday, off day traded at noon. I was up $1,200 and literally went to the mall with my ex-girlfriend at the time, came back, and right before the market got greedy, like a typical NFL player, just got greedy and put another big call in. And then the next day it was all down, all red is what I saw. And anyway, that taught me like, well, I like my idea. My idea was still strong, but I have literally no control over why this thing went down. So that's when I actually got into real estate and started working there. So started doing some investments and some flips, got a couple rentals, and now we've bought into a development company where we are building affordable housing units. We got a 66 unit building coming in downtown Newark, New Jersey. We got a 40 unit building in downtown Newark, New Jersey as well. And just really trying to grow and expand. So, you know, the final thing I'll say, and sorry for the ramble as always, but the thing I am learning from my investment strategy standpoint, the thing I'm interested in now is, as us players, we come into the league young and just super energetic and just, I want to grind all day, 24/7. That's what I'm looking for. Like, I'm just trying to work. And you feel sometimes if you're not working, then you're not getting better. And we know as we get older, like, well, no, we have to work smarter and not harder. And so I think now my investments, where you used to look for just the sexy stuff, now I'm looking for more of the stuff that is super boring but consistent, strong returns, like things I know will be here. So I'm currently researching and looking into storage units. I'm looking into parking developments or parking spaces and things like that, because I want to be able to hand that over to my son and say, hey, listen, don't mess this up. 50 years from now, repaint the white lines. That's all you got to do, right? Like, and walk away. I think sometimes as athletes, we want to be in certain spaces and that are sexy and hot topic so that we can, say we're in it. But like, I don't want to work as hard.
Sometimes, doing less or doing nothing is the right move. as an investor. And I know through my investing career, later on in the career, I'm getting interested in stocks, and so I'm like, think I'm going to be a stock picker and beat Wall Street or whatever. So I buying, I had Lulu at one point, didn't do anything for like a while, so I just sold it. And now my wife always makes fun of me that I'm not very good at stock picking because I sold Lulu 8 years ago or whatever it was. Same thing with Tesla. It went down, so I sold it. But if you don't have if you don't do the due diligence and you don't have the resources, I mean, it's just, the stock picking in the public markets is just tough to it's tough to beat the pros. Uh, even the professionals can struggle because it's just such a competitive environment. The amount of CFAs that are pumped out every year, and the amount of knowledge and access to data they have, is the average investor at home is just at a disadvantage.
Complete disadvantage. And like you said, I mean, the way we're privy to certain conversations being a part of the NFL is like the pro investors, like they're sitting down with Elon and having a discussion with them and knowing like, oh, you guys are doing what? Oh, okay, cool. Right. Like we don't get access to that stuff. So I think, that was another reason behind Life 101 is not that, we haven't sat down with Elon yet, but, one day maybe, he's a pen guy, maybe one day. But more importantly, like it's also about access. I feel like, you can attest. There's so many rooms that we've been in, and it wasn't because, no offense, Zach Miller is a great guy or Brandon Copeland is a great guy. It was because we have that NFL tag on us, and so how can we use that tag to get into other rooms, and then how can we keep the door open? Me personally, like how can we keep the door open for the next person or others to get access and be a fly on the wall as well?
Yeah, and to that access point, I know in private markets, I'm in the Next Play Fellowship right now with Ryan Neese. I don't know if you've heard of it or anything, but I mean, it's nice. It's a big. I mean, he does just such good education along with it, and going back and getting my finance undergrad, like we discuss, total addressable market and a little bit of that in the corporate finance side, but I mean, not the level of detail and venture capital that we're doing now through that. So it's a great program, and I just think about how that would have benefited me so much more earlier in my career or right when I started in the NFL. And it's those type of things that you're like, man, can't we get this kind of access, to education, and then so you can learn about private markets, because that's where a lot of athletes, the deal flow you end up seeing is sometimes already been picked over by the best venture capitalists, and so you're not really looking at the best deals. They've already been snapped up, but by your Sequoias and your big time places. So and the other thing I want to talk about a little bit was I know mailbox money and real estate's talked about a lot. And I know, like, obviously passive income is a huge goal for a lot of people. And just can you talk about your experience in real estate and how, if you really want to create value, I mean, you're pretty active in the space, right? You actually add value to the real estate you invest in. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So for me, it's so again, when I got into real estate, um, and sorry, I'm coming right back to that. I was looking at while you were talking, like delayed gratification, like you said, like um, that's something that is hard for us as athletes and players. Like we want to get better with our technique today. Like if we have a bad day today, tomorrow we need to see that improvement, or we get cut. I mean, that's just that's just the nature of the beast. And it's not like that in investing, right? And I think that when you get, for any of us, when we get that opportunity to um, be able to use delayed gratification to our advantage, meaning I was looking up Beyonce, for example, and how years ago she went to Uber to perform and said, hey, obviously she's Beyonce, hey, don't pay me in my 6 million for the performance, pay me in equity. And then when Uber went public, that 6 million turned to, I think, 240 million or so, right? Like delayed gratification. And the beautiful thing about us as athletes is like we can use delayed gratification more than we were prior to receiving the checks, because we have our earned income. And so that's something that we should be flexing more and using our platform more to do. Hey, I want equity in your company for these posts. I don't necessarily want, the 15,000 bucks today, 5,000, 20,000, whatever it may be. But um, to answer your question about real estate, so for me, I wanted my hand on the trigger in the sense of like, if I lost money on a real estate deal, I wanted to know it was because of me and not because of a tweet or because of some other reason why the market was down. So I have made sure I was involved on the paint colors, on the every dollar spent, I knew about. I had to give clearance on. The kitchens, I would literally be in Home Depot sitting down with the specialist and trying to design out the kitchen. I'd have a contractor take the measurements and we'd sit there, well, let's put the dishwasher there. Well, now let's move it over here. Well, can we get an extra cabinet here? Right. So I really wanted to learn the process of design so that I could be valuable to not only my own projects, but in the future for these larger development projects. Hey, let's move the bathroom over here. We can actually get a little more space. Hey, instead of knocking this whole wall down, let's just cut a nice opening in here. It's a lot cheaper, and you still feel like this is more open of a space than it is with the whole wall up. So I think for me, it's more about learning the things that I'm invested in, learning about them so that I can't be taken advantage of. And obviously we hear so many horror stories of guys being taken advantage of, but I'm not saying it's their fault at all because we all can fall victim to that. It's more of like I want to make sure that we've worked hard our entire lives for the money. Now is not the time for me to turn a blind eye and just hope you do right with it. Like we have to work hard to learn how to save it and then work hard to learn how to grow it. And so for me, that is my work. And so eventually I can also, by knowing that, I can also find where I can scale and fine tune this thing and create that potential mailbox money effect.
Yeah, I know you won't say it, but I'll say it. I mean, most of Wall Street is just bad for athletes. They don't have the experience working with athletes. Their clientele is not. They're just not prepared for it. They don't understand that the tax implication. There's so many advisors that just ignore taxes completely. And when you're an athlete, you're in the highest tax bracket. And to not be a tax aware investor ends up costing guys a ton of money. I know it cost me. Will end up being millions all said and done by missing out on certain tax deferred vehicles that you can take advantage of. And then there's advanced planning strategies when it comes to managing your tax bill that high net worth have access to. And when a lot of the advisors, NFL guys, end up finding they're not doing any of those things. They're just managing a portfolio and overcharging you to basically track the S&P, and then they won't advise on private investments because they're not allowed, and they can't give tax advice because they're a broker, and the brokerage firm doesn't allow them to do that. So, and then there's a conflict of interest where they don't have the full suite of services to offer the player. It's too bad, and I know. As more RIAs and independent advisors start, pushing into the NFL, I think players will get better advice. It's just guys pick, and this was me too. I just picked the advisor my dad recommended, and for good or bad, or a lot of guys rely on their agent's recommendation, and just it's not smart strategy to not have a comprehensive team that kind of like you think about an NFL owner building a football team. They hire the head coach, GM, and that guy's responsible. That's like hiring the financial firm they're representative of whether you win or lose. Like that record's on that hire. So then you incorporate all the position coaches and then the position players to win games. And so you have to have like tax team, estate planning, insurance covered, whether if you have a good contract or potential for a good contract and you don't have disability insurance, that's just a mistake. Life insurance, once you have a family, you can use, insurance and estate planning. And so, and then just simple property and casualty protection and all that stuff. I mean, a good wealth advisor should be paying for their fee, by saving you in taxes, and they should be able to show you each, a dollar amount saved in taxes by tax strategy they've used, and then give you after tax returns so that what your return is, and then actually look at your net worth. One of my biggest mistakes was just, I didn't even know what net worth was until I was done playing, which is just ridiculous now that I think that. But it's like not knowing my net worth as a player, and getting a second contract and lucky enough to earn that second contract, not even understand, not knowing what my annual spend was from the prior year. It's just simple stuff like that, knowledge is power. If I would have known some of that stuff, you don't have to, and when you're in football season, you don't want to be distracted. So taking all that stuff off the table, and then we do this for guys, is really help them understand their human capital and how much they could have in future earnings. And I think that's like so illuminating for guys, because it's like, okay, now disability insurance makes sense. Like, I'm protecting, if I just go out there and play like I know I'm capable, this is why I'm buying this insurance. It looks expensive because that's how much disability insurance is, but it's like just that knowledge of giving that power to the player to be able to play free, not worry about what's off the field, so they can focus on their craft. And I know, obviously a huge part of it's the education part, because if your advisor's not explaining stuff to you, how are you supposed to grow as into your second career, into a businessman, into your own brand, if your advisor just does everything and you never know. And the thing is, you don't have to know. Maybe you don't want to know. Maybe you're like, it's like when a plumber comes, you don't ask him like, hey, what are you fixing into the hood there? You just let him do his work. But if you want to know and you want to educate yourself and really grow, your advisor should be doing that. And obviously a little bit of a tangent there, but I feel
I got a funny story about that. So because I've always been the person, I'm not a handy dude. I can YouTube with the best of them, and I can get down when I need to, right? We got to put together a crib for a child, whatever, with our baby. We going to do it, right? But like, I've always been a guy, like, if there's a leak or something happens, then we just need to make sure we're making enough money to be able to pay somebody else to do it. But my father is with us, and our washing machine broke. It's not broke. It'll like spin and stop or whatever. But anyway, so he's pretty handy. He starts breaking some things down, and he opens this thing up, and he sees like there's literally inside and locked away, there's this whole manual on like what to do if you're getting these different functions and codes and stuff like that. And so he just brought it down. He was like, listen, somebody would have charged us $300 to come out here and come in here, unlock this box within the washing machine, and then pull out this thing, read it, and then press these two buttons at the same time and charge you $300, right? So it's just a lesson of like, yeah, it pays to know like what's going on under the hood, so that eventually you just don't set yourself up to be a target and be taken advantage of.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, one other question. I know you're busy, so we'll uh, we'll definitely have to do this again for sure. But I mean, you've had to earn it the hard way in the NFL. What's the biggest football kind of either advice you've received, maybe from a guy you looked up to in the locker room, or you just learned yourself to kind of make an NFL roster, or you know, be where you're at today?
Yeah, so for me, I'm gonna go with my grandfather. And my granddad, he played 11 years in the NFL, won a Super Bowl with the Baltimore Colts, played against Joe Namath and the Jets and lost that one, and then came back 2 years later, beat the Cowboys. Um, and his story is, I mean, it's literally ridiculous. His life story growing up. I actually did a TED talk on it a few weeks ago, and one of the biggest lessons he gave me, unfortunately, he passed away a couple years ago, but he would always rip up cardboard and crush bottles before putting them in the trash because he always wanted to have more space in it. And one day he was doing that, and I'm at his house, and I'm like 12 years old, and he just like, Cope, old school, Cope, you know why I was good at football? I was like, why, Granddad? I'm like, literally just sitting there trying to watch my cartoons, probably trying to watch Pepe Le Pew or something, see. But anyway, he's ripping it up, and he's like, I always thought of football like this. And he pulls the trash can over, and he's like, you put me and one other person in the trash can. I always thought that was like what they tell me with football. And they would always say, only one of you can come out. He was like, best believe I'm coming out the trash can. He was like, you can put somebody that's 360 pounds, all-American tackle, all-world, call him Zeus, whatever the hell you want to call him. But ultimately, we're both in the trash can. Only one of us can come out. I don't care what I got to do. I'm coming out of that trash can. And for me, literally, football has been that simple ever since then. So no matter how I'm feeling on a day, no matter what my body is feeling like, what my mental is like that day, ultimately, I try to literally simplify it down to one-on-one matchups throughout the game. So whether it's, if I'm at inside linebacker, okay, cool, I got to go beat the guard right now. Now it's me and the running back. It's one-on-one. Every single time it's just me and you, who's coming out the trash can, and I got to come out. And I think keeping the game simple has been something that's helped me tremendously because, you get in there, you get all the X's and O's and all these different terminology, but ultimately it's about lining up and beating the person in front of you, period. And if you just do that play after play after play, you'll stick around for some time.
Yeah, I mean, such a competitive game. I can see why you're still in it. The competitive drive you have to have to maintain that elite level is got to be exceptional. So, appreciate you joining me. Thank you for coming on, and obviously a ton of knowledge for everything we talked about. Life 101, BrandonCopeland.com. We'll put it in the show notes. So check that out. Any questions for Brandon or myself, email us. Mine is zmiller@awm.com. Brandon, do you want anyone to email you?
Yeah. I'm Cope at bcopeland.com. Yeah, reach out, especially any NFL players and stuff. Zach, we got our Discord and stuff like that. So, we would love to invite anybody, welcome anybody into the group.
All right, I appreciate it. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. The information in this podcast is educational and general in nature and does not take into consideration the listener's personal circumstances. Therefore, it is not intended to be a substitute for specific, individualized financial, legal, or tax advice. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a final decision.